Inception, the mind-bending 2010 thriller written and directed by Christopher Nolan. In this video we will be diving straight into its deeper themes and symbolism. There will be spoilers. Let us begin. 15 minutes into the runtime, the core themes of the film are encapsulated in a single scene. What is real, ideas as seeds, and family. Let's zoom in on each of them in turn. Here's our protagonist, Dom Cobb. He's examining his totem, a tiny spinning top. He sets it in motion on the table, and as it spins, he raises his gun. As long as the totem spins, he's on his guard, but as soon as it topples, he relaxes. Why? Well, we later discover that this is a means of distinguishing between the realm of reality and the realm of dreams.
So, a totem. You need a small object, potentially heavy, something you can have on you all the time. That way when you look at your totem, you know beyond a doubt that you're not in someone else's dream.
An elegant solution for keeping track of reality. Was it your idea?
It's Maul's, actually. This one was hers. She'd spin it in the dream and would never topple. Just spin and spin.
So this simple action tells us a lot about his character. He's a master of entering the dream realm, but he sees it as a battlefield. His real home is in reality.
Come back to reality, Tom.
Those kids, your grandchildren, they're waiting for their father to come back home. That's their reality. And this job, this last job, that's how I get there.
The film imagines that it is possible for people to share dreams, and each dream layer needs a dreamer, a person whose mind hosts and builds the world. It also needs a subject, a person who fills that world with their subconscious.
Who are the people?
Projections of my subconscious.
Yours?
Yes. Remember, you are the dreamer. You build this world. I am the subject. My mind populates it.
Let's see how this works for the central heist of the movie. This diagram shows it from Cobb's perspective. The team fall asleep on the jumbo jet in the same cabin as Robert Fisher. He is the subject. An air stewardess remains awake to press the button on the dream sharing device. So that's what's happening up top in the real world. The first dream layer down is a cityscape, hosted within the mind of Yusuf, the chemist. He remains in this first dream layer as the others link up, fall asleep, and descend into the second layer, the dream within the dream, a hotel hosted in Arthur's mind. Arthur remains in this second layer as the others link up again and enter the third layer, the dream within the dream within the dream, a hospital in a snowy mountain range, hosted in the mind of Eames, the forger.
Eames, this is your dream. I need you to draw the security away from the complex, you understand?
But like any good heist movie, something goes wrong. Cobb's projection of his deceased wife, Mal, infiltrates the dream and shoots Fisher. And because they are sedated, Fisher descends even deeper to a fourth layer, limbo.
Right, so what happens when we die?
I drop into limbo.
Are you serious?
Limbo?
Unconstructed dream space.
Well, what the hell is down there?
Just raw, infinite subconscious. Nothing is down there. Except for whatever might have been left behind by anyone sharing the dream who's been trapped there before. Which in our case, is just you.
So death is a slightly tricky thing in the dream realm of Inception. If you die in a dream layer without a sedative, you will simply awake in the layer above. But if you die in layers 1, 2, or 3 when a sedative is involved, you descend down into a further dream state. Fisher and Sato both die on layer 3, so they go down to limbo, and Cobb and Ariadne follow them down there. So what happens if you die in limbo? Well, then you wake up for real. This is the slightly confusing part of the lore in the film. Death is the way into limbo, it's also the way out. But that's okay, right? If you get stuck in limbo, you just need to die in order to escape. But here's the problem. It is in limbo that it is easiest to lose your grasp on reality.
I've come back for you to remind you of something.
This scene is included as a flash forward at the start of the movie, and it's a crucial moment. Will Cobb and Sato remember who they are and wake up? Or will they remain down here and lose themselves in this dream state? The stakes are raised because we have seen examples of people who have indeed succumbed to the power of the dream realm. People who don't want to wake up, like Yusuf's patients in Mombasa.
10, 12, all connected, bloody hell.
And I come every day to share the dream.
For these people, the dreams are a form of escapism. living in the fantasy has become preferable to living in reality. Cobb's wife Moll succumbed to this herself after living in limbo for years, burying the truth that she needed to wake up.
They come here every day to sleep.
No, they come to be woken up. The dream has become the reality. Who are you to say otherwise?
An ancient Taoist philosopher asked the same question. Once upon a time I dreamt I was a butterfly, fluttering hither and thither, to all intents and purposes a butterfly. I was conscious only of my happiness as a butterfly, unaware that I was myself. Soon I awaked, and there I was, veritably myself again. Now I do not know whether I was then a man dreaming I was a butterfly, or whether I am now a butterfly, dreaming I am a man. In other words, who are we to say that the realm of reality is more real than the realm of dreams? It's a profound question, but the story of Inception instinctively rails against this way of thinking. Cobb ultimately has this sense that reality, however uncomfortable, must be confronted. The dream realm is enticing, its escapism can numb our pain, but really it is a shadowy existence. As Mathieu Pajot writes, dreaming is an internal version of exile, in which the conscious identity is plunged into the darkness of the flesh to be renewed. The film picks up on this sense that the dream realm is more fleshly than reality. In the first layer, it's raining, because Yusuf, the dreamer of that layer, needs the toilet in the real world.
Couldn't have peed before you went under, sorry.
And during his tumultuous driving, the dreamers on the layer below experience the knocks as changes in gravity and weightlessness when the van is in freefall.
I customized the sedative to leave inner ear function unimpaired. That way, however deep the sleeper still feels falling. Or tipping.
And notice the lightning that appears in the sky down in limbo when Eames resuscitates Fisher with a defibrillator in the layer above. So the large-scale atmospheric changes and ground movements in each layer are controlled by simple bodily functions in the layer above. The dream is a journey into the flesh. Now, of course, in many stories, dreams act as a source of supernatural revelation. That's where something from beyond breaks into the dream realm. But the dreaming in Inception, like a lot of dreaming, is simply a journey into the human subconscious. It's introspective. Here's more from Mathieu Pajot. While the workaday world is characterized by productive work, accumulation, and the construction of a permanent reality, the dream world is characterized by vanity and inconsequentiality, because it is self-contained and self-referential, like a snake eating its own tail. Even though consciousness turns aimlessly on itself during sleep, that level of existence still plays an important role of renewal and recreation.
The idea really there is that Cobb and Mal have created this enormous amount of architecture over the very long time they're trapped in the state. And the water, for me, the ocean, sort of represents the subconscious. It represents the subconscious over time eating away at this vision of theirs and it being gradually lost, gradually eroding.
The Bible included, but a lot of other ancient cultures saw things like the ocean as the embodiment of unpredictability and chaos.
So the realm of dreams does play a role. Sleep is important and dreaming is natural, but we're not designed to remain in our dreams. We're meant to wake up. Let's return to that crucial moment at the end of the movie. Will Cobb and Sato escape from limbo?
Something you once knew, that this world is not real.
To convince me to honor our arrangement.
It works. They escape the dream realm. They wake up. And Sato might not have made it without the appearance of Cobb to remind him. It's also possible that Cobb might not have made it without the guidance of Ariadne, the architect. She understands him better than the others.
As we go deeper into Fisher, we're also going deeper into you.
It's a nice nod to Greek mythology. In the story of Theseus and the Minotaur, Ariadne is the figure who provides Theseus with the red thread so that he can find his way out of the labyrinth after defeating the Minotaur. And notice how, in Inception, Ariadne is dressed in red. She is the designer of the maze in each dreamscape. She suggests pressing on and following Fisher down into limbo when the others think the game is up. She helps Cobb come to terms with his grief by shooting his projection of Mal. And she provides the kick that brings Fisher back up to Layer 3.
Was it your idea?
It's Mal's, actually. This one was hers.
There's another way in which this spinning top reminds Cobb of his now deceased wife, Mal. It's one of the big twists in the movie.
The reason I knew Inception was possible was because I did it to my own wife.
Why?
We were lost in here. I knew we needed to escape, but she wouldn't accept it. I went deep into the recess of her mind and found that secret place. And I broke in. I planted an idea. A simple little idea that would change everything. That her world wasn't real.
It worked. It convinced her that she needed to wake up from dream limbo and come back to reality. But, unforeseen by Cobb, the idea continued to grow.
But I never knew that idea would grow in her mind like a cancer, that even after she woke, that you continue to believe your world wasn't real. That death was the only escape.
And that's another core theme in the film. An idea is a seed. At first it's tiny, almost imperceptible, but if it is potent enough, if it is buried deep within the soil of the human subconscious, it will grow until its expression in the world becomes undeniable.
And the smallest seed of an idea can grow. It can grow to define or destroy you.
And notice how the opening shot of this earlier scene is framed. Cobb holds the totem such that, in the background, a plant appears to be growing up out of it. Ideas are seeds, and he planted this particular seed in the mind of Mal, which tragically grew up to bear fruits of destruction in her life, leaving Cobb as a fugitive, separated from their children, James and Philippa. So the film asserts that ideas are incredibly powerful. In some cases, a single idea can lead to widespread flourishing, but other ideas, they can lead to widespread destruction. Let's consider the central heist of the movie. What is the particular idea that they are seeking to plant within the subconscious of Robert Fisher?
I will split up my father's empire. Now, this is obviously an idea that Robert himself would choose to reject, which is why we need to plant it deep in his subconscious.
In order for Inception to be successful, the film tells us that certain criteria must be met. 1. The idea must be planted deep. That's the purpose behind creating 3 layers of dreaming.
Great depth.
A dream within a dream. 2 levels.
3.
Not possible.
2. The idea needs to be expressed simply.
You need the simplest version of the idea in order for it to grow naturally in your subject's mind. It's a very subtle art.
3. The idea needs to come across as genuine inspiration, rather than something the subject is simply being told to believe.
Now, in the first layer of the dream, I can impersonate Browning and suggest concepts to Fisher's conscious mind. Then, when we take him a level deeper, his own projection of Browning should feed that right back to him.
So he gives himself the idea?
Precisely. It's the only way it will stick. It has to seem self-generated.
4. The idea should convey emotion, not just reason. And that makes sense. Humans are heart-led creatures. What the heart loves, the will chooses, and the mind justifies.
The subconscious is motivated by emotion, right? Not reason. We need to find a way to translate this into an emotional concept.
5. This emotion should be positive.
Now, Robert's relationship with his father is stressed, to say the least.
You could suggest to him breaking up his father's company as a screw you to the old man.
No, because I think positive emotion trumps negative emotion every time. We all yearn for reconciliation, for catharsis.
And so there are probably quite a few insights here in terms of how ideas have spread in general throughout history. Apart from perhaps point 3, that's a very modern Western concept. This sense that I am a self-made man and the ideas in my life that are really worth pursuing must come from me, rather than being something that is handed down to me. That's not how most people have thought around the world and down through history, but I can see why it's being leveraged in the context of the film. So anyway, back to the heist. Is it successful? Well, it is deep within the third layer that we witness the planting of the idea. Robert Fisher watches his father die.
I know you were disappointed. I couldn't be you. No. I was disappointed that you tried.
And in the safe next to the bed, beneath an alternative will that details the breaking up of the company, is a toy windmill that Robert made as a child. You see it in the photo in Robert's wallet earlier. The implication is that though he did not show it, Robert's father really did love him and was proud of Robert's own creative endeavours, treasuring Robert's toy windmill until his death. Now, whether that's true in reality, we don't know. But the idea has been planted in Robert's subconscious. Has it taken hold? It would seem so.
You know, the will means that Dad wanted me to be my own man. Not just to live for him. That's what I'm gonna do, Uncle Peter.
But notice we're witnessing Robert say that within the first dream layer. Will the idea actually develop fully and shape reality? We don't know. We don't even know if it's a good thing if it does. Sato may not have the best of intentions.
Soon they'll control the energy supply of the world. In effect, they become a new superpower. The world needs Robert Fisher to change his mind.
Sato frames the quest in terms of global interests, but is it actually about eliminating the main competitor of his own company? It's ambiguous. And that's a key feature of heist movies. You're rooting for the main characters, but their job is morally questionable. I think what makes Inception work is Cobb's desperation. He just wants to get home to his children, and he's willing to break a few laws along the way. It's understandable, even if the ends don't justify the means. And to perform Inception on Fisher, he taps into Fisher's relationship with his own father. So throughout the film, the father-son relationship is central.
And what you have to do is start at the absolute basic.
Which is what?
The relationship with the father.
Cobb goes on his own journey as a widower filled with guilt. During the heist, with Ariadne's counsel, he works through the stages of grief, ultimately arriving at acceptance. He accepts Mal's death. He dies a death to his own fantasy, his old way of life, and he rises again to be received by his father-in-law, returning home to his children and seeing their faces once again. It's a beautiful ending. On this channel, I often talk about the theology of movies, and at first glance, Inception appears to be non-theological. It's a voyage into the human mind with the help of technology. Christopher Nolan himself, when talking about his movies, often describes them in purely scientific or psychological terms.
It's clear to me that a dream is an experience of the mind, but it's not possible to dismiss an experience of the mind as unreal. When you dream or when you imagine things, there's reality to that. If you're dreaming about your relationship with a person and what you think of that person or ways in which you interact in the dream, the emotions we experience are real. They're as real as the emotions experienced in the real world. There's no more proof for these things in the real world than there are in the state of the mind. That is where emotion takes place.
That sounds rather like the Taoist philosophy from earlier. Who are we to say that dreams are less real than reality? What if it's all in the mind? One extreme outworking of this is solipsism, the idea that my mind has no grounds for believing in anything other than itself.
What's interesting to me about film noir characters who either have memory loss or distorted perceptions for some reason is those characters make it immediately apparent to the audience that they cannot perceive the objective reality around them. That's true of all human beings. We are all imprisoned by our own subjective perceptions of the world. And I think storytelling is one way in which we can understand a different point of view on what we consider to be objective reality. I think that one of the most powerful illusions of human experience is the illusion that we're seeing objective reality through our own perceptions. We can only see what we see.
Now, does Nolan even believe that there is an objective reality? He doesn't lay his cards on the table with regards to that question. But he does seem to be saying that if there is an objective reality out there, we would all perceive it differently, and therefore it's unlikely that we could reliably deduce what it is. And yet, the shape of Inception's story seems to rely on a grander and more grounded vision. It tells us that people need waking up, that the most potent belief will grow from a single seed into a global tree, and that the father-son relationship, family, is fundamental. The story of Inception has a death and resurrection shape, light overcoming darkness, and those ideas probably came from Christianity.
I think the influence of Christianity on my films is mostly cultural in terms of my upbringing. You know, I was raised Catholic. It's a lot of the cultural touchstones, a lot of what my education has been, all the rest. Christianity, ideas of Christianity sort of float around in there.
According to Christianity, there is a father-son relationship that is foundational to reality. The universe was created by an eternal union of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
What you have to do is start at the absolute basic.
Which is what?
The relationship with the Father.
Humans were created in the image of this God to rule over creation. But in our rebellion against God, we became cut off, trapped in a kind of fleshly, introspective dream state, a slavery, with our hearts curved in on themselves. But God the Son entered our realm and sacrificed himself for us, plumbing the deepest depths on the cross.
Downwards is the only way forwards.
To Jesus, death was like sleep. He awoke from it. He rose from death to glorified, embodied resurrection life, and he claimed that belief in him would grow like a mustard seed, spreading to the ends of the earth. I think Inception resonates because it taps into this story, whether it knows it or not. The story that its culture has been telling for centuries, the Jesus story, whatever you make of it. And this is fascinating when we consider the film's own insights into the nature of ideas and how they become embedded in the human mind. Against all odds, a crucified first-century Middle Eastern carpenter has become the central figure of human history. Whoever he was, there's something undeniably potent about the idea he has introduced.
What do you think of the historical person of Jesus?
Well, it certainly seems like there's a lot of people that believe that there was this very exceptional human being that existed. So the question is, what does that mean? Does it mean he was the Son of God? Does it mean he was just some completely unique human being that had this vision of humanity and this way of educating people and spreading this ideology that would ultimately change the way human beings interact with each other forever?
It seems to me that somehow Inception has been performed for real on the human mind over the course of millennia. This counterintuitive notion of the crucified God has grown to define so many people in so many ways, transforming our storytelling. Did we give ourselves this idea, or has it come from beyond? Did we invent Jesus, or did he invent us? Inception is one of my all-time favourite films. It's very complex, and it rewards the attention you give it. But more importantly, it's a good story. It's an emotional story, because the questions it's grappling with are not purely technical or scientific, they are existential. But wait, I hear you cry, I haven't addressed one of the most talked about details in the film, the final shot. The totem looks as though it's about to topple just as the shot cuts to black. If it is, then I guess Cobb really is back in reality. But if we were to continue this shot and discover that the totem continues to spin perpetually, then what would that mean? It would mean that Cobb is still dreaming at the end. Now let's run with that, hypothetically. If the ending is still a dream, it could mean that all the crew members haven't yet returned to reality. They think they have, but they haven't. Perhaps they are actually stuck on level 1, somehow conjuring their memory of the jumbo jet. But it seems unlikely that all of them would fall for it. So maybe it's just Cobb and possibly Sato who are still stuck in the dream, and the others have woken up. We see Sato raise the gun, and it's implied that he's about to shoot Cobb and himself so that both of them can escape limbo and wake up. But we don't actually witness the gunshots. So maybe one or both of them are still stuck in limbo, and therefore the Ariadne and other crew members that we see at the end are actually projections of Cobb or Sato's subconscious. The implications of that are quite sad. It would mean that the ending is simply a figment of Cobb's imagination, an idealized vision. Here's the more radical interpretation. The entire movie is a dream. And therefore Cobb really does end up on the level which is portrayed as reality for the whole movie, but that is actually still a dream level. Goodness knows how far down it is. Perhaps the entire movie is someone's elaborate plot to perform Inception on Cobb. Maybe way up there in reality, Mull is actually alive, and the movie depicts her attempt to plant the idea in Cobb's mind that he needs to spend more time with his kids. And therefore Cobb is the real subject of the heist, not Fisher. But hang on, we do see the totem topple earlier in the movie, implying that at least some of it really does take place in reality, and therefore it can't all be a dream. But to push back on that pushback, can we actually trust the totem? I got this comment from Polter Gibbs on my Discord server. He runs a great YouTube channel, by the way, you should totally check it out and subscribe. He pointed out the following: "It always bothered me that Cobb is using his wife's totem instead of what should be his, which causes the question of what was his totem, and is he actually still using it, and if Mull's top is just a fake. Or if Cobb himself is confused after everything that's happened on what his real totem is." Anyway, I thought about this a lot. Maybe I'm just the crazy one at this point. No, that's a great point. Can we trust the totem? Maybe not. This fan theory from Reddit might shed some light. In Inception, Cobb is in the real world in the ending scene. He talks about how totems only work for specific people. The top was his wife's totem. It wouldn't work for him. His totem is the wedding ring. In the dream world, his wife is alive and he is still married to her. Therefore, he wears his wedding ring. In all the scenes in the real world, his wife is dead and he is no longer married. He doesn't wear his ring because of that. In the last scene, he isn't wearing his ring. Wow, mind blown. That's a really interesting observation. Here's how I interpret the ending. It does take place in the real world, but it cuts just before the totem topples to acknowledge the fact that even the real world isn't quite right. There must be more. Maybe beyond our own minds and perceptions and introspections, there is an objective reality out there. And maybe we can encounter that reality. Hello, Thomas here. You might enjoy a short film I directed called The Telltale Heart. It's based on the Edgar Allan Poe short story of the same name, and we had a lot of fun with it. Loads of practical effects and unhinged performances. And you can watch it by clicking here. I'd love to hear your thoughts. On this channel, I try to look at film from a different perspective, and sometimes I have a go at making films myself. Thank you so much for watching. Do subscribe if you'd like to stay in the loop, and I will be back soon. Goodbye.